All right, so here's why you should never lower your pricing. So this is a video as a follow-up to yesterday's video on, running ads for your high ticket offer and how to do it properly. So if you want to watch that, go for it. But today we're going to talk about why you should never lower your pricing. And this brings a story back from one of my clients that I worked with, where he hired me to help him grow his business. And one of the many things I told him to do, which was a big one, was to just increase his pricing. And the way I figured that out was I looked at his data for the past 3 months and I noticed that he lowered his price at some point for seemingly no reason. This is a mistake a lot of people make. They lower the price for almost no reason. And all that happens is you just make less money for no reason, right? So you go from making 100K a month, you lower your price and you just make less, right? So in his case, for whatever reason, he lowered it. And I looked at it and I said to him, why did you lower it? You need to put it right back up and increase it. We did that and he immediately made more money. Now, it's not always that simple. But in general, you should almost never lower your pricing. Now, I'll give you a situation where you might want to lower it. And that's if you can make more money overall. So let's say you're making 100K a month right now. And by lowering it by an extra 1,000, and once again, you do this through calculations that you've done. So you've got calculations you've made. You're not just doing this emotionally. You've noticed that by lowering your price by $1,000, you can make $200,000 in cash per month overall. So it's actually a net positive. But what most people do is when they lower the price, they go from 100K down to 50 or 60. So it's like a negative. And who wants to make less money for absolutely no reason? So most cases, you should never do. If you're under 100K a month, you should probably just stick to one price and not lower it for almost any reason. And let me tell you a very, very fun fact. I have, from the hundreds of sales calls that I've done in the past few years, right, I've done so many sales calls and work with so many clients, I've never seen someone charge too much, like almost never. And the few times, right, here's the fun fact. The few times I've seen someone charge too much, right, they had very high pricing. Even for my standards, I would look at them and be like, wow, your pricing is high. They always made so much more money. So it was never a negative. They always made more money. So whenever I've seen someone have very high pricing, where even I'm surprised, they just always made a lot more money. And so it's kind of impossible to charge too much. I'll be honest. It's just, it rarely happens. If you're worried about, am I charging too much? You're probably not. Just so you know, you're probably not. There's no way. It's very rare that you're charging too much. You're probably charging okay, and you should probably be charging a little bit more. Now you might be wondering, how should I know if I'm charging the right amount or if I should increase the price? It's very simple. So you should be tracking your sales calls, right? You should be tracking how many sales calls you do and your close rate. So your close rate to the sales calls. Now you can also go into how much cash you collect in revenue per sales call, but you should just be tracking your close rate in general, and from that we can deduce what your closing percentage is. Now, typically, if you're closing at 90%, and by the way, I actually have a friend, he makes like $300,000 a month, and he closes at 90%. But he kind of does it because he's outsourced his sales. He does it for different reasons. He's making $300K a month, he's fine. But in most cases, if you close at 90, your price is too low. Because everyone is saying yes, which is not good. You don't need, you can't have every person, because let's say my price is $1. Let's say I'm Tony Robbins, my price is $1. Everyone says yes. That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing, because now your price is too low, which means it's available for everyone, and it kind of doesn't have that much value anymore because it's too low priced. So what you want to do is you want to have your close rate be typically, I would say, around 20 to 30%. Now, this is just like an estimate. That doesn't mean you have to be right there, but usually, we're talking cold traffic, usually you're around that range, 20, 30, can be up to 40 as well, 40 to 50 as well can be. But you just don't want to be too high. That's the thing. You don't want to be 60, 70, 80, 90 consistently, all right? And basically just be, everyone's saying yes, right? Let's say you should be charging $5,000, but you're doing 2K and everyone's just buying it, which is good. But you could have charged the 5, This is what people don't understand. And the way to really test this now, because I'm just throwing numbers around, this doesn't mean has to be between 20 and 30. It's just generally like not everyone should be buying. That's the point, right? It shouldn't be everyone. You should be disqualifying people. And the way to really do this is by looking at is by slowly increasing the price. So, and then seeing how it affects how much money you collect, right? You want to keep increasing to the point where people are just, okay, I need to split up that payment now, right? So if typically you're collecting $2,000 up front, okay, now try and go to 2.5K. So you're increasing about 15-20%, right? 2.5. Are people still paying up front? Oh, they're paying up front. Good. Now you go to 3K. Because so you want to kind of increase it like kind of like a game, right? So you want to increase it to see what happens. You go to 3K. They're still paying up front, no problem. All right. Now 3.5. They're still paying up front. All right. 4K. 4.5. No problem. 5K. You can see how you're just making extra money with no extra work just by increasing it. Let's say you go to 5 and then people are like, John, it's getting a bit high. Can I split it up? I want to split up the payment. This is where you've kind of reached a good point. That's when like the value price discrepancy, whatever you call it, you've reached kind of that ratio at that point. So if you go to 5K, and that's where it starts to like that's when you've reached a point where it's like that's a good price to have. You're charging about the right amount, and that's where you can play around with it. You can keep it at 5. You can try to go more. You can try to go more, and there's ways to increase it. But that's probably a topic for a whole nother video, how to increase your price. Today's about why you should not lower your price. But yeah, that's kind of how I would think about it, right? So once you get to that point, try to play around with how much you can collect up front, because that's the big thing as well. How much cash can you collect up front? But typically, I would go in about $500 increments, and I did this myself, by the way. And if you want to know where I started, you don't want to know where I started, because I started at $500, went up to $1,000. This is my own offer. Went up $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, $35,000. This is literally what I did. $35,000, $4,000, $4,500. Actually, I went from $3,000 to $6,000 because I did a call with a guy. He looked at my price and he told me, dude, it's just too low. Like, this is not even worth getting on a call with. He told me to immediately double it. I doubled it. It made no difference to my sales. Like, literally, I just made double the amount of money for nothing. And guess what? Even that price was too low, because since then I've doubled it again. So from 6,000, now I'm more than 10,000, and I'm probably going to be increasing it. I've even closed clients at $12,000. Can you imagine how much money I was losing charging $3,000? That's what I was doing. I was charging $3,000, and I sold so many people in, and I was happy, right? Because I'm like, yes, everyone's saying yes. Sales left, right, and center. When I could have been charging 12,000 or 15,000 or 16,000, but really I was at 3, and I stayed there because it was comfortable until the guy told me to go to 6. I stayed there until I was comfortable, and then I pushed it up to 10, and now I'm going even higher. I've had clients at 12K and even more. So yeah, like I said, you're just losing money for no reason. It's the easiest lever to pull, and you can always change it. Like, if you do 10 sales calls or however many sales calls, and maybe it is too high, which probably isn't, by the way, but let's say you can always go back down. Like, let's say you went up to 6K, and for whatever reason you felt like it was too high and whatever, right? And you want to go, you can always go back down. No one knows. Like, the high ticket call is all on the phone anyway. Like there's no risk to trying it out. There's really no risk. Now, generally, of course, you want to make sure you have the value, right? Like, you have the value. And I don't want to get into the topic of how to increase the price, because that's a whole different strategy, how to increase it properly. But you want to actually be able to increase it. So I would consider different strategies, which I'm going to talk about in another video, on how to actually increase it properly. But I hope that helped. Like I said, never lower your price. The clients I've worked with that usually made a lot of money, have had very high prices where I was even shocked. I'm talking 15K, 25K, 30 feet, like just ridiculous amounts where even most people would be shocked. And they made a lot of money by having these high prices. So like I said, I've never seen the price too high that didn't work. Like I've never seen someone have a high ticket where it was a problem ever. It only worked better. We just made more money, more cash ROI, more money in the bank, more everything. The only issues I had is people pricing too low. Right? That's the only time I've seen a problem. It's just too low of a price. Yeah, that's usually almost always the case. Too low of the price, split payments, all these things. Right? And once again, probably next video I'll talk about how to actually fix your pricing properly, using a very, very good strategy to do it the right way, so that people so you can get the right people on the phone that can actually pay the premium pricing. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to test your new high pricing on the bottom segment of your market. Because imagine you go to the bottom segment and they can't afford it, but really you're trying to target the top one, right? So you want to make sure you're getting the right person on the phone to make sure you're actually testing your pricing correctly with the right person that should be paying this. And if they don't pay, then you have a problem. Then there is a real problem. But if the wrong person comes on, they don't pay, they were the wrong person anyway. But if the right person that should be paying, that has the exact problem, that has the all that stuff, and for whatever reason they are not buying, they're not buying, then you have a real problem. But typically, if you do it correctly, they should be the ones buying. Then you always know that segment of the market is the one that should be affording my high ticket pricing, which means you got a niche down. So that's for another video. We'll get into it. But if you have any questions about this, let me know below. Once again, never lower your pricing, always increase it. I've never heard someone making less money by increasing the price. So within reasonable limits, of course. But you can go pretty high. You can go higher than where you're at right now. Let's put it that way. You can go higher than where you're at right now. And yeah, and you probably got to communicate a bit differently. There's different things you got to put in place. But generally, most people are underpriced as opposed to over, but they're worried about being too high, which they're usually not. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'm going to be making more videos on this topic, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you.